Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Greg's Garage Pod with co-host Jason Pridmore. This one's presented by Arai. And for 3 generations, Arai's been making some of the world's best helmets. And of course, Arai helmets meet all safety standards, but they also pride themselves in a blend of engineering tech and human craftsmanship. That makes an Arai helmet fit better and feel better, which also protects you better. Your head's worth the best. Visit AraiAmericas.com for more information on tech, fit, finish, paint jobs. AraiAmericas.com, because you owe it to you. And with that, let's bring in my boy, Jason Pridmore. Yo, what up, JP?
What's up, G-Dub?
What's going on, man?
How we doing?
I'm good.
Oh, man.
I'm good. You and I actually haven't spoken in a long time. It's been like maybe 5 days.
It's been so awesome. It's been truly the best 5 days of my year, I think, for sure.
Well, that's
without question. That's
not saying a lot with your 2019, you jackass.
My 2019 has sucked, but it did get better. It's got a little bit better. I know you were off to Austin last Thursday, I think it was.
Yep.
You were off to Austin to do your Robin Hood thing. And on Wednesday, I just couldn't take it anymore. I got up, I went to the gym, and then you and I did our podcast, and it was about 1:00, and I'm thinking to myself, I can't really do anything. Even at the gym, I'm hurting and this and that. So long story short, I booked a ticket up to Dr. Ting's that day. 2:00, I booked a ticket for a 7:00 flight. I went up there and got 4 days of treatment with Doc up there at his clinic. And it was discovered that my wrist was actually broken. Like it was for real broken, not like a little buckle break 7.5 weeks ago. It was actually broken. So I got a bunch of treatment on it. Good thing is there was no displacement. So it has been healing, which is great. But my wrist just totally responded to the treatment that I had. So I'm excited because this weekend I got one-on-ones at Chuckwalla, and I'm really looking forward to just getting on a bike and riding a little bit, because this year's just been a bit rough.
It's been rough. I mean, there have been obviously bright spots. You know, you get to work the MotoAmerica season. The one-on-one stuff's going well. You have 2 national champions underneath your JP43 umbrella. I'm not scared to talk about it. You know, I mean,
no, it was great. I guess it's all relative to certain things. I just think that and there's people, there's so many people worse off than I am, and I don't even like complaining or bitching about my state of health. It's no, but dude, it's just been a little bit of an unlucky
having
thing.
To feel pain nonstop since January has got to be brutal, dude. I mean, it really does.
And the MotoAmerica thing for me is so much fun. Like, I love being there. I love our jobs, but you know, it's hard when I can't really walk around the paddock. Like, I want to go down and see everybody, and I want to go walk around and talk to some teams and be there. The truth and the reality of it all is that it just hurts me so bad. My ankle hurts so bad right now that I literally can't just go walk around. And MotoAmerica's been cool. They've given me a scooter at a couple rounds, but I hate bugging them and asking them all the time. And but I love interacting and being around. But even walking on pit lane stinks. That's on Fridays anyways. I'm out watching all the sessions, as you know, and I love doing that part of it.
We've seen
I get to bring some guys in every now and then. Yeah, but the thing is that it's the MotoAmerica part of it is obviously a highlight, because I get to be at the races, get to hang with you and talk about what we love, and I get to keep an eye on a few people that I've been lucky enough to work with. So yeah, Andrew and Alex Dumas had a great year this year, so it was fun. But I'm hoping that you know, my wrist getting a little bit better now is going to allow me to at least go do some things I like golfing and stuff. And then I'm actively looking at different doctors right now just to see about getting my ankle done. And I've had some of my road racing friends, say, Jay, check this guy out, check that guy out. And for me, it's just a matter of, I know the surgery I'm going to have on my ankle is going to be big, Greg. And I just want it to be done before we get started next year so that I can get back to like a normal life in the paddock.
Yeah, that'd be so good. Now, can you get on the motorcycle this weekend for one-on-ones? Like, I know when we talked last, your wrist, like you were trying to ride a bike down the street and you couldn't even do anything with your wrist more than anything else.
Yeah, that was 4 weeks ago, and that was because my wrist was broke. And that's, the hardest part for me is, the worst part, I guess I should say, is that I've been through it a few times. So I know when something doesn't quite feel the way it should. And in this case, I knew it was worse than what I was being told. Just had a funny gut feeling. And we did some x-rays this last week, and we from a couple of different angles, and all of a sudden, it pops up, and Doc he's like, holy shit, Jay. He's like, it's actually broken. So the main thing is I'm on the mend this weekend. I've got Corey Alexander, Michael Gilbert helping me this weekend with my one-on-ones, but I'm also hoping that I'm going to be able to get out there and do a little bit of riding as well, to where I can get out. For me, it's just good for my mind to just get on a bike and ride every now and then, even if it's not at any real big pace.
I got on my motorcycle, my street bike yesterday, and just did 80 miles.
Way.
Yeah, Actually, I just went to look at another motorcycle that I want to buy, used. Yeah, it's a Husqvarna TR650. It's a dual sport bike, like a single cylinder. Yeah. It's BMW owned it for 2 years. Guy's got one here that I actually looked to buy. I looked at buying it last year, but this guy actually bought it out from underneath me when I was on a trip, like our last race of the year. Came back, said, I'm ready to buy it. Guy's like, sorry, we sold it. So the guy who actually bought it is selling it, and he's selling it for about $1,000 cheaper than it was last year, and it's only got 200 more miles on it. Kind of a thing.
Oh, great.
So I'm looking at it, but anyway, I had to ride. It was like a 50-minute ride in traffic, and it was traffic, stop and go, and a little bit here and there, but didn't matter, dude. It was just so good to be on a motorcycle.
Well, this winter you'll have to come out here and do a little bit of riding. And I mean, at Chuckwalla, you got plenty of places to shoot too if you want to shoot. No
doubt, dude. Yeah, and actually, I was going to ask you about that. When does the Chuckwalla, the CVMA racing season start? Because I know Chuckwalla is for those that don't know, is in Desert Center, California, which in essence is like smack between LA and Phoenix. And it is literally in the desert, the middle of the desert. So they shut it down a couple months a year because of heat. So when does the race season start for that club?
Well, that's what's great about the whole CVMA thing is that our MotoAmerica season ends, and man, that thing fires right up. And it's a great winter series. It's a series that goes they had their first weekend last weekend. So
they did. Okay.
Yeah, they had the first weekend last weekend. So they start September, and I think it goes till April. So, and they try not to conflict with any of the MotoAmerica stuff, because we get a lot of MotoAmerica competitors out there. I think in the big race last weekend, Michael Gilbert won, and then I think Chad Lewin was second, and I think Wyatt Ferris was third, Dave Anthony fourth, and then actually Alex Dumas made his 1,000 Superstock debut. Greg, he went 47.8 out there, which is first time on 1,000 out there is unreal. And I know the bike he's on. He's on just a stock 1,000 Suzuki that's got a pipe and probably flashed ECU and stuff. But he had Jake Lewis's bodywork on there, so I'm sure people thought he was on Jake's Superbike.
Oh, really?
But yeah, who knows? Yeah. Who knows? But yeah, no. So CVMA's kicking off now, and I'm getting all my one-on-ones are pretty booked, which is super, and everybody's understanding about my leg and if I'm there or not there or whatever. So it's nice. But
maybe we'll have to include CVMA in the podcast this year. Since
100%.
We started this thing in November, I believe, Jay. So we're almost. Well, yeah. I mean, this is episode 52, I think. 52.
That's insane.
But we did a couple Yeah. So I believe we started this thing, I want to say mid-November last year, and it's already the beginning of October.
It's insane.
So
I can't believe we've done that many. So it's great. I mean, it's been a lot of fun, and hopefully everybody out there is enjoying it and listening to what we're having to say. And we try to get the best information we can. So, this last weekend, Greg, obviously World Superbike was in France, Magny-Cours, not one of my favorites. I've been fortunate enough to race there a bunch,
dude.
And
I can see why, by the way. I mean, oh my God.
It's not good. It's not one of my favorites.
The track has zero flow, Jay. It has zero, it looks like it has zero flow to it, and it's so busy, it's just I don't know how to explain it. When you're actually there and you're riding it, it doesn't seem that bad. There's a couple places on it that are redeeming, like turn 1 to turn 2. Turn 2 is actually a really fun corner, so it's good. But it always rains there, and it did this year on the Friday. It rained pretty good, but it's you're exactly right. There's not a lot of flow. There's a couple first gear turns, a couple really tight, sharp turns. But it was still overall, it was an interesting weekend. The track had some, lend itself to some great great racing. We had a first time winner who actually won twice in Top Rack. Top Rack was Gatioglu. He ends up winning not only race 1, Greg, but he won the Super Pole race 2. But in race 1, it was Top Rack, then Ray, Sykes, Baz. Bautista ends up 5th.
Then you got Lowe's Camier, who I thought it's great to see Leon Camier back. It'll be interesting to see what his plans are for next year. Then we have Melandri, Laverty, Cortese, Torres, Mercado, VDM, Vandermark 13th after Michael Vandermark led the majority of the race, like up until 3 laps to go, and then he tipped off in one of those little slow right-hand corners. And we have Rinaldi and Del Bianco were your point finishers. I think taken away from it, when you look at it, there was a championship to be won with Jonathan Rea, and in that first race, even though he led up until, well, it would have been about 3 corners to go, Toprak made a pretty big move underneath him, and you could tell Rea didn't really want to fight that too much. So I think that, me included, kind of looked at it like, Rea didn't want to fight. He was ahead of Bautista, but Toprak really stole that race from him. I thought he rode amazing. He rode very, very well to close that 2 second. Like basically, it was like a 1.5 gap with 2 seconds to go, Greg, and he closed it down.
Well, a couple things about this race, because, it came down to the last lap, 4 corners to go. Razgatlioglu made a pass on Rea. Rea said after the race that he made a mistake, that he left the door open. But that was World Superbike's 800th race. That was race 1 on the weekend. At the beginning of that race, Vandermark and Rea were swapping paint early. Sykes looked really good. Like, to me, I thought Sykes, at the beginning of that race, he looked good. He looked aggressive. He led the race for a while. Chaz Davis had a really it wasn't a crazy crash, but it was just like it was going left. He transitioned to the right, and he was trying to get by Razgatlioglu and just had nowhere to go. And I watched it just in one angle, like many times, but I thought that was pretty good. I would have to say,
but you know what? But when you say that, that's kind of been the biggest thing with Chaz that look, Chaz, like one of my favorite guys. I mean, period. Like just as a guy himself, just off the racetrack, he's such a good dude. The little bit that I've hung out with him, but it's some of those early race incidents like that kind of take him out. And the move that he made on Toprak, it really wasn't even close. Like it wasn't close. Those are the kind of things that I think costs a lot of guys championships or rides. I'm super happy to see Chaz going to be back with Ducati again. But that said, it's like those are the little mistakes that you just can't make at the beginning of races. You got to let things play out. And I realize how fast the pace is. And the feeling of anytime you see Johnny Rea going towards the front, you don't want to let him go. It's almost impossible to reel it back in. But that race never really got to play out for Chaz. And to be fair, I feel like he probably would have been there had he just got in behind Toprak going. I mean, that right-hander where he crashed, Greg, is a very tricky turn coming down. You're coming down a pretty steep hill, going back down through the gearbox, and then you're hooking a right. But it's a slow corner. Where do we see the most mistakes made? Slow turns. And that crash wasn't close. Toprak was very, very lucky to stay on.
Yeah, I think that the comments made post-race in race 1, now the pace was, 37.7 from Johnny Rea. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was probably the fastest race lap of the weekend. Like just kind of, what did I say?
Could have been, yeah.
Of the long races, not the Super Pole. Super Pole, a 37 flat by Razgatlioglu. But in terms of, let's see, 37.9, 37.9. Yeah, so I think 37.7 was probably the fastest race lap of the longer races.
Yep.
But the comment was, because of the rain that you mentioned on Friday, there was so much rain. This was really the first dry time that they had. And so that kind of bunched everybody up initially. And it gets so frantic in there.
That's the greatest word. Yeah. It's a word that I've been using a lot, but you're 100% right, Greg. Just frantic, right?
It's frantic. And it's the Pirellis that they're on, obviously they stick well. They can do good lap times. But I don't know, what is that one first gear right-hand hairpin that they were just showing tons of highlights.
Yeah, turn 5 there, yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Razgatlioglu, when he was going in there, dude, he would snatch the brakes and the whole bike would just snap violently sideways. And I thought, oof, like what's going on with that dude? But we saw it in Supersport as well. And we also saw it, though, that was Saturday. So I figured, okay, we're going to see the bike change. We're going to see some setup changes and stuff. But after the Super Pole race, Razgatlioglu in his post-race interview had said, we made a bunch of changes to the bike. I didn't like it, so we just used the setup from yesterday's race, which means that's the race setup that they used for race number 2. And man, the thing, I just thought that he rode so far over the bike, Razgatlioglu did. It looked so hectic and so frantic compared to what Johnny's bike was. And I just thought it was a great race for him.
No, and I think that this is going to be something that we'll talk about here in another part of our podcast in about 10 minutes here. You just bring up such a great point, because Johnny just looks so polished, and everything looks kind of simple and easy, and doesn't look frantic, right? Even when he's at his most frantic, you can't tell, and I think that's the sign of it. Who do I say that about in our championship all the time?
Cameron Beaubier.
100%. Whether Cameron's on a lap record pace during the race with 2 to go at Pittsburgh was just insane to me. During mid race at Barber, those 5 or 6 laps where he was running just 24 flats, 23.9. I mean, like over and over and over and over. But you couldn't really differentiate that between a 25.0 and 24.0. You couldn't tell, and a 1 second to us is a lot. But Resgatioglu, for him to get a win for Pacetti, that's a long time coming for them as well. Obviously with Turkey behind them. I mean, the Turkish government's behind them with Kenan Sefoglu and so on. I thought it was a great result. Vandermark, deserved better. Unfortunately, he tipped off. He had kind of kept those guys at bay. I agree with you on Sykes. It's interesting to hear the commentators, and we'll have to talk to Stephen English, one of our counterparts over there. They talk a lot about how the BMW is a little bit down on power still, but we know how good that bike is out of the box power wise. I mean, BMW notoriously is known for its motor. But yeah, I think that if Sykes has a little bit more underneath him, but a third and getting another brand on the podium is good. I thought Baz at home race was great.
Yeah, me too.
The Super Pole race, Greg, was interesting too. Mm-hmm. In that one, Resgatioglu got to the front a little bit earlier. Ray battled with him and stuff, and tried to obviously keep him honest. Ray ends up second, Vandermark third. And then you had Chaz Davis and Batista. They're fourth and fifth with Lowe's sixth. Baz was seventh in this one. Sykes was all the way back in eighth after getting kind of shuffled back early. Haslam ninth, Rinaldi 10th. I think that when you look at the Super Pole races, it'll be interesting to see what World Superbike does with them at the end of the year. I was on the fence about it, only from a rider's perspective, if it was going to be good or bad. I feel like the racing's been good, and it kind of shakes up the results, and it also sets the grid for their final race of the weekend. I've kind of enjoyed it. What about you?
Yeah, I've kind of enjoyed it. I think it's interesting for the fans for sure. I think it's a weird, statistical bit of a problem, I guess you could say, because now you have like, oh, this guy's getting to this many race wins in such and such a time. And it's like, well, hold on a second. Now they have, 50% more races than they had. They went from 2 to 3.
Yeah.
But I think it's good. I think it's good track time. I think really more for the fans, I guess, than anyone else. But I don't know. I'm still kind of on the fence about it. Ultimately, like, should it stay? Should it go? It's great that it sets the grid, because Razgatlioglu, Jason, came both times from 16th on the grid, to
Unreal.
win 2 races.
It's unreal.
So from that perspective, then you go, okay, well, guess what, buddy? As a reward for your hard work, let's go ahead and put you on pole position for race number 2.
Which I think is great. And I don't believe they count as official World Superbike wins, those little short 10 lappers. So, you know what I mean, Greg? So I don't think that if they count as official, to go into the record books. I think race 1 and 2 are the only ones that do. Where I think about it more as a rider is that I'm taking just as much risks. Now I've got 3 races a weekend. So as far as contract stuff goes and things like that, you think a little bit about some of those or some of the bonuses and things that you might get from that race.
Well, remember when we used to do heat races for 250s and stuff like that?
I do.
They
did it for 750s and 600s, everything.
Oh, we did?
Yeah. I used to do heat races back in the day, probably before you were riding, before you were in the series, Greg. Yeah, we were doing heat races.
Yeah, because I only remember heat races for the 250 class, I think, by the time I showed up. But but my memory is also junk. But so I kind of look at it in a weird way like that. It's like it's because you get championship points. To me, it's an incentivized heat race to determine the grid for race number 2, I guess. That's I think that it's an advantage for those guys that might be further back, like Top Rack. But if you've got pole position, there's really no advantage, right? Because all it can be is a disadvantage. Because if you get shuffled back, or you have a bike break, or you do something like that, then you get shuffled back for race 2. Yeah. But I mean, look, let's not talk about things that obviously haven't come up. It doesn't seem like anybody's bitched about it too much. I'm sure within the paddock, there's more grumblings about certain things that you and I don't know. But that said, I don't think that I think that they've done
I think it's just been a pretty fun thing. And then in race 2 on Sunday, so after we did the Super Pole race, we had this final one. And really what boiled down to is that if Jonny Rea left this race with, what would it be, 100-point lead, Greg?
125, I think. 125.
Yeah, the championship would be over. Yeah, 125. You're exactly right with the Super Pole stuff. Isn't it? What I think for Super Pole they get 12 points.
Yeah,
for the Super Pole.
You had to have 100.
So it's like a 112-point lead.
Well, no,
right?
There's two more rounds left, so it would have been.
Oh, you're right. 124.
So if he had 125,
yes.
Yeah,
correct. So when you look at this one, there were some big ramifications in it, because if Rea could somehow manage to pull out that big of a championship lead, he would walk away with a very interesting 2019 World Superbike Championship. And in the race, as it went, Toprak finally tipped off in like 3 corners from the end, real tight right-hander. He tips off. Unfortunately, Bautista was right behind him and took Bautista out, and that essentially was the championship. At that point, Jonny Rea was able to kind of ride home a little bit free, even though Van der Mark kept him honest. Van der Mark and Lowe's both rode amazing to finish second and third on the pad of Yamahas. Rea looked in control of that race once he took the lead, knowing that he just kind of had to more or less finish. But he went on to win the race, win the championship. VDM gets second, Alex Lowe's third, as I mentioned. Davis, Baz, with a good weekend for Loris Baz. I think that the Tenkate team have done a really good job on that Yamaha. He's routinely been ahead of Melandri and Cortese. Melandri ends up 6th, Haslam 7th. Really disappointing weekend for him. Sykes 8th, Camir again top 10, Jordi Torres 10th. Then Mercado, Laverty, Berrier, Chianari, and Reiderberger. I think that when you look back, the championship to me was almost decided a couple of rounds ago, watching what was going on. And we'll talk a little bit about the championship in a minute, but Jonny Rea wins the championship with 2 rounds to go, and I don't think any of us would have seen that after 11 wins in a row from Bautista at the beginning of the year.
I mean, Bautista had a 60-point,
it's a joke,
something like that, a 60-point lead.
Yep.
After like 4 rounds, and we had Jonny Rea on the podcast, and he was giving us, the rah-rah speech, like, we're going to keep our heads down, we're going to try. But the thing, when we had him on the podcast, and we'll have him again, definitely We're going to have him again. But it's one of those things where you're sitting there going like, yeah, I actually believe him. You hear it from some people and you're like, yeah, I get it. It's the corporate talk. As a team, we're going to keep our heads down. We're going to keep grinding and stuff. But with Johnny, I knew it was going to happen. But we had already, at that point, you and I and he, in the conversations we had on this podcast, already started looking at where are the tracks going to be strong for the Kawasaki? Like, where can he make chunks of points back on Bautista? And then, boom, the freaking wheels fell off. After they went and tested somewhere, I can't remember now, but it was like, yeah.
When you look back, you got to think to yourself, it's unfair to say that Johnny didn't win this championship, that Bautista lost it. But it's a combination.
No.
It's a combination almost. It's like one of those things where you look at Jonny Rea was doing everything he could to finish second in every race he possibly could. Like, even when you go back to Australia, he was in battles for second because he knew that if he tried to chase Bautista, it was going to be fruitless. It was hopeless. He was going to burn his tire up and probably finish 5th. So the way he managed races like a champion does was incredible. The fact that he's winning races when Bautista screws up, that's on Bautista to me, because Jonny Rea can win on any given weekend. This is, I don't think that I can think of anytime ever that there's been a bigger choke job in a championship than this one. This was signed, sealed, delivered. People were handing him the trophy, and this is why you do all the races. But Jonny Rea winning 5 times in a row now in World Superbike, and Greg, I don't know how you are about. We've seen this in championships a lot, you and I, over the years. When a guy dominates a championship, I have a real appreciation for it. Like the motivation to try to stay motivated to win, to try to continue to work as hard for the 5th one as you did the first one, I think says a lot about Jonathan Rea, how hard he had to ride this year, just in general. I think that the field itself has closed up behind him. So he's had a lot more people that he's had to battle with. It's got to be gratifying. And I have no problem that the guy's won 5 championships in a row.
I love it. I love that he has. And I think if you really look at this and he has time to reflect on it, not that Jonny Rea needed more motivation But Jason, come on. You win 4 in a row in dominating style. You start to win them early. All of a sudden, Bautista shows up and really challenged the Kawasaki team, challenged Johnny Rea. And if you just look at the point standings right now, Jason, just right now, so we have 2 to go. Johnny Rea has scored 544 points.
Yeah.
Now, Bautista's collected 415, but take him out because, let's go at the regulars that have been in there. Alex Lowe's has 279. So 544 to 279 is 265 difference. You get what I'm saying?
That's insane. Insane.
So your point is valid in that we have seen Lowe's, Vandermark, Razgatlioglu, Haslam, Chaz Davis, Tom Sykes, and early on, I think Melandri mix it up with Johnny Rea.
Podium guys this year. Everybody you just mentioned are all podium guys.
All podium guys. Okay. I've all mixed it up with Johnny Rea. The thing is that not every weekend. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like he's the only guy it's like he's swimming on top of the water and you have these fish that are coming up and just dipping in with him for a little while. Then they got to sink back down and go back up and down. All the while he's just cruising. And ultimately that's what happened with Bautista. The difference is it happened to Bautista in chunks that were at the very beginning of the season to skew our perspectives. Had this season ended up where Bautista was winning 1 race, 2 races in a row, then he'd kind of fallen back 3 races, then he won a couple more, and he ended up having to win total. You kind of get what I'm saying? Like, I actually have to say thanks to Bautista for making this World Superbike season extremely interesting, because without him, this would have been another total walk away from Johnny Rea, which is great. I love watching the Master at work, but there have been some amazing stories that came out of World Superbike this year because of the collapse and the work and the effort that Johnny Rea and his team have put in. And, the battle going on between Alex Lowe's and Vandermark. I mean, those two have been third, fourth, back and forth all year. And Lowe's right now is 279 to Vandermark's 274. So third in this championship is not wrapped up. And I have to imagine there's got to be some championship bonus, somewhere in there for those guys. Yeah.
No question. I think that when you look at the year, World Superbike's kind of got itself back on the map a little bit. I think Top Rack showing that he can win races now. And I remember watching him in 1000 Superstock, thinking a lot of him. I mean, I think a guy that's really underrated that we don't talk about enough really is even Loris Baz. I think Baz has ridden really well. When you remember that the beginning of the year, he's sitting on the bench, he's got nothing. And then Tenkati jumps back in, I think at the Mazzano round, or one of those maybe right before, but they jump in and pretty good results right off the bat on that Yamaha. And I look at him and I think he's done pretty well. Yamaha's made a pretty big effort over there. They've got, they're essentially they have 4 bikes, with the 2 Pata bikes and the GYR team. When you look at that and then Tenkate has Baz and then maybe another seat open next year. There's some seats, there's some things opening up over there. So Superbike's been great this year. But boy, man, when you say what you just said, Greg, about Johnny from first to even to third right now, I mean, it was good that Bautista was there all year. That the inability to do what Johnny Rea did on Bautista's half, where if Johnny Rea was winning races, Bautista couldn't just finish second or just finish third and just collect points even after he had that huge lead. I mean, Ducati had to just be pulling chunks of hair out of their heads when that was going on. I mean, it had to have been just insane.
By the way, Razgatlioglu, Jason, was the 17th different countryman to win a race, meaning 17 different countries have won World Superbike races in the 800 races it's been around. He was the first Turkish rider to win. So if you look at the way the championship, it's 2 British riders, a Spaniard. You have Razgatlioglu from Turkey, and you have Vandermark from, where is he from? The Netherlands?
Yeah. Vandermark's from the Netherlands. Yep.
So I like that mix in a way, because what we have seen in recent years, it's been practically an all British championship, where you have Johnny Rea and Lowe's and Chaz Davis and Tom Sykes all up at the top. So I think that it getting a little bit more of an international flair. Sure, I'd love to see an American in there for sure.
Well, we might just see that. You never know.
So hold your tongue. Let's talk about that a little bit later on. But good World Superbike. They have 2 rounds left, and obviously the championship is decided. Looks like Bautista is alone in second, so he'll wrap second up in the championship. we'll talk about his future more, Jay. But you want to move on to Supersport because that was like a, oh my God, kind of a race. So
did you watch it, or did you watch it after I told you to watch it?
I watched it. I mean, no, I watched it after you told me to watch it, but I was going to watch it anyway.
Yeah, of course.
And I mean,
of course.
I can't tell you the emotional roller coaster in that race for me was incredible. And the reason for that was who ended up crashing, who didn't crash, and all that kind of stuff. But Lucas Mayas on the Kawasaki gets Kawasaki's first win in, I don't even know what it was, like 26 races or something like that. I had not realized Kawasaki hadn't won in so many years. Vinales ends up in second, his first podium for the Spaniard on the Yamaha. And then Battavini had a great race with DeRosa at the end. So it was Cowie versus MV Agusta, with Battavini coming out on top in third, DeRosa in fourth on that MV. And then you have Akubu, Cluzel, Pirolari, Grodinger, Smith, Sebastian, and on down the list. What you're not hearing is Caricasulo, and you're not hearing Krummenacher. And the reason for that is that freaking Caricasulo. This drives me crazy when riders have an opportunity. Early in the race, Krummenacher crashed out. He's in the gravel trap. He's not restarting the race. The Bardal Evans brothers World Superbike team on the Yamaha, championship points leader to that point. Caricasulo was up front, Jay, and then what happened? Well,
I mean, Caricasulo's out front, pulling away 3-4. I mean, he has like a 3 or 4 second lead. He's already been told that Krummenacher's out. And then he goes and bends it. And where does he do it? Does it in the slow corner again. Like,
it was heartbreaking.
It is. And the constant push in slow corners is the thing that will get you quicker than anything. And when you see on your board, you've got +1, +2, and you're pulling away from Mayas and all the rest of them. I mean, the Kawasaki's, like you said, Greg, haven't won in so long. So Caricasulo and Krummenacher have been a little bit the class of this field.
Yep.
I'm sure he had a lot of confidence, and he's thinking to himself, okay, I got 25 points up for grabs. I'm going to win this race and snatch it, have a 15-point lead going into Doha. Man, and look, it's sport. Everything, things happen, things happen.
And it's,
it's sport. Did he choke? I don't know if you call it choking. It happens. No. But when you got a 4-second lead and you got to start thinking about 2 rounds to go in the championship, I'm behind right now, 10 points back. Man, going into Doha with a 15 or 10-point lead gives you a little wiggle room. In Doha, those Yamahas are going to be breathing down the front straightaway. So I could see it could be like a Caricasulo Krummenacher finale at Doha where they're battling each other. You could have really put some points in your pocket. And then to make matters worse, Greg, he gets up, doesn't he? Gets up and gets going.
Oh God, right?
Yes. Gets up and gets going.
Yes.
And he's in like 19th. He gets himself up to 19th, and it's still 10, 12 laps to go. He's got a lot of pace on the guys, up in front of him, and crashes again. It's just brutal. It's just, you can't make it up. And on one side, I feel horrible for him. On another side, to me, it's man, you always gotta have your bearings about you.
Okay, no. So that brings the question. So the first crash, you could just, it's slow corner, little mistake. Okay. Second crash. So are we in Chokeville? Are we in Chokeville at this point? I mean,
I think you might be a little bit, because you're in frantic Chokeville. You're in that spot of like, oh my God, I've completely just screwed this up. I'm hosed. My team are gonna be going, what the hell were you thinking? And then next thing you know, you've lost the front again and you've crashed again. I feel like it's just one of those things, man, that it's just so brutal to watch, and I feel bad for him. But Lucas Mayas has been on one for the last couple rounds. He's been close. Like you said, nobody really other than Safoglu has been able to get that Kawasaki to win races. And this year, now we've got, Pedercini's in there with Battavini and Kyle Smith. Kyle Smith actually got pole position, Greg.
Yeah.
And he won the European Championship part of this World Championship. So he ended up 9th in the race overall, but Kyle Smith actually was on pole. So we had 2 Kawasaki's on the podium. Squeezed in the middle was Vinales. The other guy, Greg, that I was shocked at when you look at the rundown. So Mahias, Vinales, Battavini, DeRosa, Akuba, Cluzel, Pirelli, Gradinger, Smith, and Sebastian were our top 10. The guy I was the most shocked at, you know who I thought was going to win that race?
Danilo.
Nope. I thought Cluzel was going to win that race. I thought Frenchman in France, 2 of his title rivals go out. He's 3rd in the championship right now. And I'm thinking to myself, it's time. This is where you make your big points haul back and at least get yourself in with a shout.
Yeah.
And he made mistake after mistake and finds himself back in 6th in the rundown. I was actually surprised by that.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I mean, Lucas Mayas is French, so the French got to fly the flag and all that kind of stuff.
For sure.
And we all know how when you're in your home country, you tend to be motivated a little bit more, no matter how calm and cool collected you think you are, especially the French, so I thought Loris Baz obviously had great runs, and hopefully for him, it wasn't just the fact that they were in France. But yeah, I thought that was a bit surprising too, because if you look at Cluzel, who's third in the championship, he's sitting on 155 points. The lead is 193. So Cluzel, who can definitely get streaky, had an opportunity himself, but he only scores 6th place finish. So not a big points haul. The championship really doesn't do anything. It's just kind of a big wash. Mayas up to 123. So if you think about it, he was down at 98 points and only gets 123. So he's in 4th with a solid 4th place right now. So it's just those two guys. When we look at it, the two riders from the Bardal team, Kirkasulo and Krummenacher, have been the class of the field. There have been people that have come up and fought with them. But when Krummenacher went down too, think about if you're Krummenacher, Jay. You go down and you're like, I cannot believe that I just tossed away the championship lead. I can't believe it.
Yeah. And where he did it is gnarly, by the way. Where he did it was pretty gnarly. Like, I've seen a couple big ones out of there myself, out of that little right. I've done a lot of 24-hour races there. So, racing that place at night's no fun either. But where he did it, it's so easy to have the rear of the bike snap around on you that way. And that was a big crash. That was a big high side.
Big high side. So you got to be thinking to yourself, man, I can't believe it. I'm hurting. I high sided. I just tore our equipment up, blah, 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 blah. And here you go, a couple laps later, and your teammate balls it up. Or actually, he just tipped over. And you're like, all right, wait, I got a chance. And then Kirkasulo gets off and running, and you're like, oh, man, he's going to get a couple points on me. Like, if I'm Krummenacher, it would have been an emotional roller coaster, too. And then all of a sudden, Kirkasulo in crash. Number 2, no points. Good race. Up front. By the way, Vinales almost got a win. It was 0.2 of a second, the margin of victory for Lucas Mayas, who was not leading on the last lap, but he did, I think, maybe 4 or 5 corners to go. Or maybe it was that turn 5. It was turn 5, because at post-race, Mayas had said, now that I'm thinking about it, he had said that he only could pass people in one corner. He passed every single pass he made, Jay, was in the exact same corner.
Was it? Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's what
he rode. He rode awesome. It's good to see him, obviously former World Supersport champ. So it was good to see him win. Also on the weekend, Greg, in the 300 Supersport World Championship, Manuel Gonzalez goes on and wins his first championship. Rode like an absolute champ to do it. I don't know if you, I don't know if you got to see into that one.
I did.
Yeah, it was a great race. A lot of fun to watch. I think, when you look back at the year and you see, how the year ran out, I think Ana Carrasco should be so happy with herself and how well she rode. She wins the race. Gonzalez ends up second. Scott Deroux ends up third. Deroux and Carrasco now are tied for points in second. She's done an absolutely amazing job as the defending champion, because last year, Greg, there was a lot of scuttlebutt about her bike being maybe not within the rules, and the Cowie had a big advantage. And she had a couple races last year where she ran away, and I think the fact that this young lady's still winning races and she's still fighting for the championship all the way to that lap, she was still in it. I think Gonzalez had to finish 4th or better to win. And he rode just tremendous all year. He was on the podium nearly every race but one, I believe.
Dude, and he came from 15th on the grid.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, he just was the class of the field this year. But I think Ana Carrasco can hold her head very high and show that, hey, it's the ability that she had to do so well.
How many races has she won? 3? Would she run 3?
I think she's won at least 2. I believe 2. I'd have to go back and look. But anyway, she rode really well. The race itself was really interesting. It came down between 4 guys, 4 people, I should say, with Anna being the leading. It's also neat to see the camaraderie she has with Johnny Ray's team. They were there. They were the first ones there to her in Parc Fermé, as they have been before. But the top 4 were covered as we would normally see, Greg, by a second. Then we had to go a little bit further back to Pratama, Loy, and Ricci, and all the rest of them from 5th back. But World Supersport, to me, I really like it. I love it. What I really want to see now is we've kind of seen this this platform built on these smaller bikes, and we've seen the craze take off even here in America with some of the biggest grids, and all the club racing series across the country are, we're getting such a mix of people that used to ride thousands have gone back to smaller bikes, and kids are on smaller bikes. So we're seeing this mix. What I want to know and what I want to see is somebody really make the jump from 400s to that next step. Now, Alex is doing a little bit of that right now. Dumas, he went this year from 400s to the Twins Cup and did well. His next step looks like it's going to be on 1,000. He's going to go to 1,000 Superstock. It appears for next year. So I want to see the Gonzaleses and the Scotty DeRues and some of them jump up to the 600 class and make an impression. That's what I would like to see.
I don't think Gonzalez can, right?
Too young still? Is he too young?
Yeah, he's the youngest road racing world champion ever is Gonzalez.
That's crazy.
But I don't know. I don't know if he's 14 or 15. Like, I don't actually know his age. When you see him on the podium, he looks like he's 12 years old, and I haven't done the research to find out. But I agree with you. I want to see the next person. But by the way, I do have to say that Gonzalez came from 15th on the grid to second place in like
unreal
in a couple. And I just thought, outstanding way to win a championship. He didn't win the race. Obviously, Carrasco had checked out with 2.2 seconds of a lead. She actually took control of the race late in that race and left 3 of the guys behind her to mix it up. But yeah, I'd like to see that. I'm not sure, how much experience Anna Carrasco has, on a 600 bike. If she's going to be the answer, I wonder. Anna Carrasco can make some really aggressive passes on the brakes on the little bikes. Yep. It gets a little bit different as you get, up and obviously she can carry corner speed. She can get on the gas as well as anyone else, but I'd like to see her give it a chance.
Yep. I would too.
With Gonzalez, Daru, a couple other riders in that field that you look at, just like, eventually I'd like to see.
At any point during that race. Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, at any point in that race, did you think to yourself at all, I think Rocco can run with those guys?
Yes, the whole race. I really did. And actually,
I did too.
What Gonzalez did, it was funny. When I saw that race, what Gonzalez did when he came from 15th on the grid and he was right up in the mix, like right away, the first thought that came to my head was, that's what Rocco Landers would do. Just, you know what I mean? Like,
it would be so sick if there was a way. The problem with going over there, because I did it a little bit with Alex, it's being able to get on a good team is the important thing. I mean, it's the age old thing of, even if you pay for a good ride, you don't know how good it's going to be because you don't know the people that you have over there. I mean, your basic connection with them is either through, it's either a phone call, it's an email, or it's a connection that somebody has with somebody over there, and it's just always middleman shit, and like I feel like it would be so great to see final race of the year at Doha in a month's time, I believe it is, probably 3 weeks to a month's time. That's about 3 weeks, isn't it? Yeah, I just wish there was a way you could get Rocco over there and let him get on a good 400. That would be a great track for him, by the way. Be a tremendous track for him. And get him on a good 400 and let him do the final round of World Supersport. I just wish that there was a way to make that happen.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I just feel like it would be a good thing for him,
Yeah.
So, anyways.
But Jason, look, speaking of riders going off and doing other things, let's talk about silly season as it relates to World Superbike, the premier class, because silly season has kind of started to wash itself out quite a bit, but there are still some things undecided. So, news items: Toprak Razgatlioglu is leaving Kawasaki, the Turkish team, and going to Yamaha to fill Alex Lowe's spot. Alex Lowe's. Wait, has there been an announcement? Because we sure have seen people hint at what he's doing.
Pretty much, I've been reading it everywhere that Alex is going to be taking over for, it looks like Haslam. It looks like Lowe's is going to partner with Johnny Rea next year.
Right.
I think that's been said enough all over the place that it doesn't hurt us to
Bautista,
say what we've read.
Bautista to HRC Honda, which is a whole nother thing. Scott Redding to Aruba.it Ducati, so he's going to be teammates with Chaz Davis. Sykes was confirmed at BMW for 2020. You said it. There could be a Tenkata team, like second rider, so that's one or two bikes open. What about the second Yamaha team? I don't know what's happening over there. We know Melandri's retiring. Who's going to jump in? So, Jay, a lot to talk about here as it relates to silly season. Let me start off with this. Is Razgatlioglu a good replacement for Alex Lowe's at Yamaha, in your opinion? I know you're tight with Lowe's and all that kind of stuff, that you guys know each other.
Yep.
But objectively, because I have my opinions on this right now, is that a good move for Yamaha? And I'm not sure that's a Crescent move or if that's a Yamaha Japan move.
Well,
I don't know.
As the rumor mill goes, Toprak wasn't stoked that he didn't get to ride any part of the 8-hour. It was just Johnny Rea and Haslam, and it sounded like things started to break down from that point on. Yamaha was obviously, it sounded interested. Safoglu was in there as his manager, wants Toprak on factory equipment, which I believe he's got right now. I believe he's on the exact same bike as Johnny Rea. Okay, so and there's two ends to this to me. You kind of talked about it earlier. When you look at the way the Yamaha has to be ridden, and it's been very well noted over here, when you look at Gerloff and you look at Bobier and so on, it doesn't like to be manhandled. It doesn't like to be, it doesn't like to have its neck wrung in a way where it's continuously out of shape or moving around. You said it in the podcast earlier about how you looked at Toprak riding almost a little bit more frantic than what Johnny Rea does on the exact same bike. I don't think that the Yamaha will respond well to that. I think that it'll be a difficult transition from him to go from the bike that is arguably first or second best on the grid to it'll be interesting. And I don't know who his crew chiefs are. I don't know any of that stuff. It's going to be interesting.
I know what you're going to say. The Yamaha is a little bit long in the tooth. Let's put it that way.
I don't think it's long in the tooth. I think that it's definitely shown some pace here. It definitely seems like it's gotten better. They've obviously found something because the Yamahas have gotten closer. But I still don't. It's a distant third, maybe fourth best bike on the grid. I feel now. I think the Kawasaki and the Ducati are better. Obviously, I think that the BMW has caught up a little bit. I don't know. It's going to be, and it'll be interesting to see how good the Honda will be. So where does the Yamaha end up and all that? So from him to go from what is arguably maybe the best bike to the third or fourth best bike, I think it'll be a little harder than he thinks.
All right. So this is what I know about the recent Yamaha R1 World launch. And you know some people that went on that launch. I know some people that went on that launch. The word coming out of that launch and the word coming out of racing from Europe is that the little changes that they made inside the power plant, a couple of them had to do with transmission stuff, some wider bearings. I don't want to get too technical about it. But from everything that I have heard about the improvements that Yamaha has made to the R1 as a street bike are actually going to help the race engine. So
great. That's great.
I'm not saying it's going to develop 20 more horsepower because there's no 20 more horsepower to get anymore, in my opinion. But the way that the motor is going to work in the relation with the transmission and the engine and the power, everything is going to be better. So we could see if there's any issues that I don't know about with the Yamaha, the little things that the riders feel that maybe engineers have been trying to work out. That's a whole nother situation that might be remedied by this new R1. If you look at it on paper, you're going, yay, you got new forks.
Yep.
Well, who cares for superbike racing? Yay, you have an updated EMU. Well, okay, big deal. You don't need that for, So initially when they launched it at Laguna during World Superbike, I looked at that bike and I'm sitting there going like, oh, yay. Like, hey, it's the old motorcycle term, bold new graphics. But it's not.
Yep.
There are a couple key things they've done inside that power plant, which of course we know, Jason, it's frame, engine, displacement. Like there's certain parts can't be changed in the engine. The rest of it, pretty much throw it away and you can create a superbike. Electronics, wheels, forks, swing arm, shock, new tank, all that kind of stuff. So I'm sitting there going like, all right, maybe that's going to be a good thing to help the Yamaha. And maybe that's part of how Yamaha sold their ride to Toprak, as well as we guarantee you, a spot in the Suzuka 8-hour, which, by the way, I have to think Yamaha has got to be going, man, we're kind of sad to lose Lowe's because he was a performer in the 8-hour. My God, he was so good.
And him and Vandermark get along really well too. Like they get along amazing. So I mean, I've never heard Alex say an ill word about VDM ever, not once. When you break up that team camaraderie, it's difficult, but I don't see I don't see Toprak, and it's got to be really hard to see that. It's got to be really hard as well to see that Toprak goes out and wins, finally wins on the Kawasaki's, and then you kind of got to start looking at the Yamaha. But he'll do a lot of off-season testing, and again, we don't know who crew chiefs are going to be. We don't know what stuff that they'll come up with over the winter. But if we judged off of things based the way they are right this second, it's going to be a tough move. Now, Alex, on the other hand, he's got to feel like he's just
hit the lottery.
For
real, right?
The golden, he's just won the lottery almost, because the fact of it is that he had options to do some other things, and this one comes along, and to me now he's riding better than I've ever seen him ride. He's finishing races. He's doing well. He's racking up points. He's third in the championship. And this is going to blend right into our other two riders, being Bautista and Scott Redding. When we start looking at what goes on there, this year for me, this was the year Ducati had to win the championship. This was it. When you come out with a brand new bike that was as dominant as this bike was at the beginning of the year, you have got to win the championship this year. You know why? Because all the other manufacturers are going to catch up. And the Ducati, let's just say, it's probably going to be pretty unchanged going into 2020. Sure, there'll be little tweaks, little things here and there. But you have to think, Greg, the Honda's going to be all brand new. The Kawasaki, we've heard mumblings that there's going to be some changes made possibly to it, to where it's not going to be the exact same bike, because they realized, man, all of a sudden, right out the beginning of the gate this year, they were just getting smoked, weren't they?
Homologation special sounds like, you know what I mean? That's the kind of coming down the pipe.
Everybody now is going to move closer to the Ducati. This is my opinion. Everybody's going to move closer. I'm going to ask you a question. I told you I was going to hit you with one. If you had to choose at the beginning of the year, or even now, you got a pocket full of money, who do you put on your bike? Do you put Scott Redding on your bike, or do you put Bautista on your bike? Who could go win races today?
Scott Redding. No.
You think Scott Redding can win races
Bautista
today?
Can go win races. He has won races.
Yeah.
He has. The Scott Redding thing to me was actually shocking. It was shocking from the standpoint of, is this really how much emphasis we're putting on British Superbike at this point? Which is great. But they're not the most sophisticated bikes. And I know Scott has MotoGP pedigree, but I was a little surprised by that, you know?
Bautista, I could almost accept beating Jonathan Rea the way he did a couple rounds, because he was that good. He is that good. Bautista's amazing.
Yeah.
He has an obvious problem with keeping the bike upright on two wheels, especially this year when it was absolutely needed. I mean, when Ducati came out and with this bike, and as amazing as it is, they had the right rider, they had the right package, they had the right everything. And this was the year they had to win the championship. They had to. I don't rate Scott Redding as good as Bautista. I don't think Scott Redding has the capabilities of going and beating Jonathan Rea by 10 and 15 seconds. I don't personally see it. Like, if that happens, I will be shocked if Scott Redding goes and wins races by 10 seconds next year.
But
stunned.
Does this now move Chaz Davis as the A rider and Redding as the B rider, and then Chaz gets the development direction he wants versus the Bautista direction?
Well, that's all to be. We don't know yet, but I don't care if Redding gets to develop the bike. I don't care. I don't see Chaz beating Jonathan Rea by 10 seconds. I really rate Chaz, but I think that what's going to happen now is the Kawi is going to get closer to the Ducati. It's going to make it harder for the Ducati to dominate the way it was dominating this year. This was the chance that Ducati had. It has to be very hard pill to swallow to know, when you look at all of the things that have happened in Ducati world in the last year and a half, from getting rid of Lorenzo in MotoGP to, I mean, this year in MotoGP, you can't say that Ducati's has been success. Like, the championship itself has been successful. They've won a couple races, but they were planning on being there all year. And then in World Superbike, they had that to fall back on, and they were dominating, and that's gone away. And so when you look at it, they have great bikes. Obviously, it's putting the right package together with the right person. Really thought Bautista was. It had to just ruin the feel of that team when he just kept tossing the thing down the road. I mean, the first one at Jerez, I remember clearly in turn one, I couldn't believe he did it. He had a lead. He was doing whatever he was doing, and he tips off. That was really the beginning of the end. And now Bautista goes to HRC. Are we going to see as big of a jump like we did the beginning of this year? Is that Honda going to be that much better than the Ducati and be that much better than the Kawasaki to where Bautista could just disappear and go off on an 11 run winning streak again? Who knows? I mean, we don't know anything about the Honda, do we?
We don't know anything about the Honda. What we do know is that there will be some MotoGP brains from that paddock in the World Superbike paddock. But this is the thing about motorcycle road racing, that if anyone doesn't know about motorcycle road racing, you need to know. The tires are everything. Everything. HRC, their MotoGP minds, have built motorcycles around a Bridgestone tire and now a Michelin tire over the last 10 plus years. The Pirelli tire is a unique animal all to itself. And I think that that's the struggle that you saw. I thought Moriwaki did the right thing. They started running Pirellis in the All Japan Road Race Series a couple of years ago to prepare for this season. Didn't work, like I've said, I think I've said this before, the expectation was that this new Honda coming out was actually going to be introduced a year earlier than it is being introduced. And so I think maybe Moriwaki had it like, okay, we're going to develop this bike around these Pirellis, and we're going to give us a good database as to what we need to do when the new bike comes out and all this kind of stuff. So what I don't know is, and I haven't been able to find this out, and if someone has found this out, then obviously I'm not doing my research very well, but what is this team going to be? I know we keep saying it's HRC, but is it going to be Moriwaki with more HRC involvement? That's the thing I don't know. Do you?
Correct.
I don't.
No, I don't. Yeah. I don't know. I honestly, I don't know anything about what's going on.
Yeah,
like really over there. It's
and all I hear, Bautista talking about is how he feels like HRC has sold him as an integral part in developing this motorcycle. He feels, more. I don't know. I shouldn't say more, but like that he's a part of the team and an important cog in the system. So I don't know. I mean, there's obviously
something that's happened there though within the Ducati garage. I mean, and my guess, Greg, is that people were kind of getting the shits with him crashing as much as he was. Honestly, that's my opinion, because they built that bike around Alvaro Bautista. Nobody else could ride it. I mean, that was the big thing that all the pundits were saying that, where's Chaz? Where's this? Where's that? I mean, they built a bike around the guy. He was incredible rider. He was making Johnny look very secondhand, even though Johnny was finished in second, and it was like. The Ducati just looked like a different bike. It looked like a MotoGP bike compared to every production.
Well, it is. It looked like. It is.
I know it is.
Like
I know it is. But I mean,
or 15 or whatever it is. That kind of bike.
Right.
So.
But whatever it is, it's like, and he completely screwed that up. And there had to be some rumblings within Ducati that said, "Hey, man, like, pull your head out. Like, this is ridiculous." I mean, when he crashed again at Laguna in race 1, then he gets taken out in race 2. Or in the Super Pole race, I think him and Toprak got together, and then he's hurt, but it didn't matter at that point. The season was over. Like he had started this downward spiral. And if I'm Honda, I'm thinking now, do I have the right guy? And if I'm Ducati, even with Redding, and please understand, I'm not bagging on any of these guys. I'm just, is Redding the guy? Is he the guy that's going to come in and do what Bautista did at the beginning of this year? And I don't think he is. Now, the other thing that we've got to talk about too is, and I know you saw him as well as I did, and Garrett Gerloff, was over there talking with the GRT team, and maybe even Tenkate. He was very coy at the banquet, was Garrett, where he was saying,
he sure was.
Right, I've had a great couple of years riding Superbike. It's going to be interesting to see what the future holds for me.
I love Yamaha. I want to stay with Yamaha.
Yamaha's been a family. So when you see it, for all intents and purposes, I've heard that Garrett is gone. Like, I've got some obviously pretty good connections over in Europe, and even this morning, it sounds like Garrett is going to do it. And to that, I say, Garrett, I'm pumped for you, because my biggest criticism of people in America has been, go take a chance. Go take a shot. Go and go travel the world. I mean, you've got to want it to go over to race in Europe. Now, I've also been the guy that says, if you're making a boatload of money here in America, it doesn't make sense for you to take a pay cut to go race over in Europe. Okay.
Yeah.
But at this stage, where things are everywhere in the world, if the opportunity arises and he can make it work financially for him, I think it's incredible that Garrett's going to take the chance and go over there and grow. This is what it's going to be. There'll be a whole nother level of speed. I'd say when I say another level of speed, that's not downplaying the speed here. I'm saying there's going to be more people at that speed. He's going to have, instead of just racing against Tony every weekend and racing against Cameron every weekend, he's going to have 7 or 8 of those guys to race with every weekend.
Is he going to be able to take Josh Hayes with him?
That's the question too. I mean, it was great that Josh helped him as much as he did this year, and you got to think that Josh was a huge key in that. Look what Josh did with Garrett. Look what he did with Bobby Fong and Richie Escalante. I mean, he is an integral part of each one of those guys. So all those questions are things that will, I'm sure, get answered as we go. Those are things that we're going to have to figure out and find out. And of course, this is all speculation. These are things that I have heard, that it's been written on the internet as well, that Garrett's over there looking around and there's some opportunities possibly for him. So
I think he's going to love the Pirellis, by the way. I do. I think Garrett's very front end dependent. He likes to have a good front end feel and all that kind of stuff. And we know the Pirelli's got a very tacky front end, front tire and stuff like that. I mean, I look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do. And, from a World Superbike, I don't know what you'd say, the popularity of World Superbike here, as long as he goes over there, if this rumor is true and the word gets out that he's going over there, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with World Superbike and MotoGP in terms of where they're going to air next year, because I'm not entirely certain that those two series are going to remain on a network that is dwindling daily, which is, beIN Sports. I've heard that there's possibly going to be a shift to a larger network like NBCSN. If that's the case, then World Superbike and people here in the United States have the ability to start watching World Superbike again, having a vested interest in Garrett Gerloff, who has spent plenty of time in the U.S., who's spent plenty of time, gaining a fan base. And that's, really critical. Just like a Rocco Lander spending a year here where he's been in Europe this whole time, people have gotten to know Rocco a little bit by being here this year. And that's important for a U.S. racer to take the U.S. with them, where a guy like Kenny Roberts Jr., for instance, never really made a mark in the U.S. at an extended period of time. And a lot of people even forget that he won the 2000 MotoGP, World Championship, because they're like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember that guy. Where Ben Spies had time, Nicky Hayden had time. Those guys had time here, so in a different world, by the way.
And I think Garrett's ready. I mean,
Garrett's
right
ready.
now, if our championship was to start tomorrow, you could make a very serious case for Garrett Gerloff winning the championship. If our 2020 season was starting, you could make a huge case that Garrett Gerloff could be the guy to beat. Sure. We don't see Garrett making big mistakes. We don't see him, say crashing very often. We saw him mechanical at Pittsburgh. We saw him fall off in the morning of Sunday morning warmup, but in race wise, he does finish, and that's going to come in handy for him over there. I think that he's always going to have a race on his hands. His aggression looked better the last half of this season. He looked like he was getting more aggressive, almost like he figured out that, hey, I do belong here. I do belong up in the front. I do belong racing with Cameron and Tony. So I'm proud of him. I hope it happens. I hope we get to see an American over there. I hope we get to root for somebody from here, because we've been talking about it for years now that we need to get more Americans over there. And if it does work and it does go as we'd like to see it go, it just proves it gives our championship even more credibility, which is what everybody at MotoAmerica was trying to do when they started this thing. So let's hope it all goes great, Greg. We got Thailand this week. Preview Thailand, MotoGP.
MotoGP, yeah.
What is there to talk about?
Well, there's a guy named Mark Marquez. What is there to talk about? I don't know. I mean, I could give you some stats. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Marquez's win at Aragon GP was the 129th time he's been on the podium in his Grand Prix career. Only 5 riders have done it. I mean, at this point, the talking points for MotoGP end up being a statistical run, right? Like, Andrea Dovizioso has the opportunity in Thailand to get his 100th podium finish, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? Like, it's 23 races. Marquez, in the races he's finished, he's always been on the podium and he's only finished third one time. That's the stat, okay, that the MotoGP paddock, I'm going to read this, okay, over the last 23 races that he's finished, because obviously we know he's fallen off a couple times. Marquez has always been on the podium and finished third only once, and that was in Brno last season.
It's ridiculous.
The series is in trouble, to me, in terms of like, close racing now, variety. I mean, the step that Honda has made in that motorcycle, they made a huge step by getting more horsepower out of it. And I've said this before, they changed the frame to a scoop right in the middle, so it comes through the frame. They didn't get it just right. They have since worked on it, and whatever. No one else can ride it but Marquez. Okay, I get it. But guess what? He can and he's whipping everybody's ass. So I don't know.
I love it when a guy dominates. I love it when guys dominate and people go, well, it's just not as hard as it used to be.
Oh, baloney.
Okay. I did the cardinal sin because, all my friends know, and obviously that I for the better part of 6 months now, I don't get on and read anything. There's a couple websites that I go to. There's a couple websites I go to. I go to like crash.net. I go to Bike Sport News. There's a couple over there that I go to. GP1. I go to those. Those are the ones I go to get the majority of my information of everything. But that said, I don't really read. I don't go on Facebook. I've really made a big effort to not stay away from all that stuff. But I kind of made a little bit of the cardinal sin last night because I was reading up on some stuff for the podcast, and I went on and I saw again that people are like, "Oh, 2020, will be Dovi's year."
What? Dovi who?
I don't get it, man. Yeah, I don't even get it.
Well, I mean, if people are grasping at straws because they want a good racing series,
they got to do something. Yeah.
I mean, the worst thing to say is 2020 is going to be Rossi's year. I mean, that would have been really.
Can't do it.
But that really. Do that. But that okay. So in looking at Thailand, all right. I mean, obviously we've only raced there 2 times, so it's not like we can dip back in time and start predicting. But who can race him? I mean, right now, I think you can't say it's going to be Dovizioso's year. Not next year. If anyone, it's got to be Quartararo's year, right? But then the question then becomes: where does Yamaha go, Jason? Where do they go? Vinales is no longer the number one guy, is he? You know what I mean? Is Rossi the number one guy? Is Quartararo? Like, who are you getting feedback from? What direction do you go? And who gets now the if we have one whiz bang part that we think is going to solve some problems, who gets it?
I don't like the number 1, number 2, number 3. I like when you have multiple bikes on the grid now, when you've got Quartararo and you got Vinales and you got Morbidelli and you got Rossi. Okay, Morbidelli has proven to kind of be the 4th guy in that group.
Yeah, not a bad 4th either, by the way.
No, not at all. But when you look at it, it's like, man, you better give every rider you've got under contract the absolute best bike they can, because otherwise you're just going to keep getting beat. Why would you, on any given weekend, Vinales is up there winning or Quartararo's got a shot at it. But like, there's just so much overreaction to everything. Quartararo was unreal at Misano, but Marquez just kind of played him, just sat there and waited, passed him, took off it with 1 to go. I just feel like there is no equal right now. There are guys that can step up at certain weekends or in certain races, but right now we've not seen one guy come to the front that would be like, okay, that's the guy. That's the guy you put your money on. I mean, there just isn't. And I think that if you're any of these teams, man, you need to figure it out. I mean, the same can be said for KTM. Nobody can ride the KTM but Paul Espargaro. He's the only guy that's been able to really get on that bike. And that bike, to me, characteristic-wise, as far as how you have to ride it, seems to be a lot like the Honda. If Paul Espargaro jumped on that bike that Lorenzo's on, I'm not going to discount Paul Espargaro as being a guy that could probably be up there as well, because the KTM is no easy bike to ride. And that guy is up there, like way further ahead of the guys that he's got as far as teammates go. Now he's hurt, and hopefully he'll be better for this round. But anyways, I think Thailand will be an interesting race. We got big battles in Moto 2. Alex Marquez does have a bit of a points gap right now to Augusto Fernandez, further behind, and then obviously Moto 3 is going to be great between Della Porta and Canet. Canet dominated at Aragon, as you and I talked about last week. So I think that when you look at some of that, it's going to be fun to watch the 2 other classes. What do we have races left after this? Marquez is going to win the championship this weekend, I believe. All he's got to do is beat Dovi by like 2 points.
No. So the situation is that right now there's 150 points left. So we have
Japan.
So you have let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 125 points left, and he's got a 2-point. He's got a 98 point lead over him.
Yep.
So
that's it. He leaves with 100 points after this race. He's won the championship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. So we have Japan left, so we have Japan, then we have Phillip Island, then we have Sepang, and then we go back to Valencia. So you're talking about in a season that was supposed to be touted as the most competitive season in years, he's going to win it 4 races early. You know what I mean?
It's insane.
Where
Yeah, but it's not hard to understand after the stat you just gave about his podium finishes and the things he does. And I mean, yeah, he's just too good. The guy is too good.
all eyes on Moto 3, baby. That's what I'm saying. All eyes on Moto 3.
Hey, what do you think about this crap real quick? I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but what do you think about this stuff about, it just seems like now it's like, oh, you're nobody until you've changed manufacturers.
I mean, I have never believed any of that. I don't, yeah.
Why would you?
I don't, look, if you're winning, I think you and I can't remember if we said it on the podcast or for sure you and I have had private conversations about this, where if Marc Marquez, who's still so young and is going to wrap up his, fifth title, whatever, if you're in that position where you start to lose motivation and maybe you want to give yourself a challenge and you have nothing to prove, okay. Or, Valentino, I mean, he left Honda to go to Yamaha because he said, F you. As I remember it correctly, it was HRC saying our bike is the best and Valentino saying, no, it's me that's getting this bike around the racetrack. And they went two separate ways and Valentino proved that he was the best because he went to Yamaha and won on a Yamaha. So I don't know where anybody comes up with this idea, like until you've actually been a MotoGP racer and how they think they can comment on how things should be. I kind of giggle about it and just go like, you're insane. Like if Marc Marquez stays with Honda, a la Mick Doohan, right?
Mm-hmm.
What difference does it make?
Yeah, you think Mick cares?
No, God, no. And do you think anybody cares? You think if Mick Doohan walks by and he's got 5 world championships in a row, that somebody murmurs, oh man, he wasn't really that good because he didn't try to do it on a Yamaha or didn't do it on a Ducati. Like that person has any juice in their world? There's not one mechanic.
Laughable.
Not one
laughable.
team. Yeah, please. Listen, we've said this on the podcast, Jay, and actually it was in the news last week where some people, I can't remember who it was, maybe it'd been Crutchlow, somebody said, you could put Marc Marquez on any motorcycle in this paddock right now, any motorcycle, and he's going to put the thing on the podium.
It was Crutchlow. Yeah, he said KTM and Aprilia, he'd be there. No, it's just crazy. It's crazy, but I think, I'm looking forward to a good weekend. It'd be fun to watch the races again from there. It's kind of nice. I mean, I get bummed that MotoAmerica is done, but we still got some racing to watch, don't we?
Yeah, Chuckwalla Valley Raceway. We're going to follow that all winter long. That'll be good.
Let's do it.
People better get out there. All right, Jay, let's wrap this sucker up because let's do the race calendar, okay? So obviously MotoGP is in Thailand. British Superbike, BSB, is in Donington Park. That's a good one. Yep. BSB. Any news about BSB you've heard recently?
Nope. You know what? I haven't heard too much about it over there as far as that goes. You know what? I'm trying to get it to where I can watch it. My buddy Andy's been trying to help me. And anyways, the championship's really good. I mean, it's obviously a pretty fun one to watch, but there's not a lot that I know. I did read something this morning on Bike Sport News that they're looking at doing some changes as far as the red flag procedures go. And since a lot of our rules come from, what the rest of the world is doing. You can't help but think back about our red flag situation that we had on the Sunday at Barber in the 600 race. And it looks like there's some changes that are being made over there. So this week, I think you and I put our nose to the ground a little bit, maybe call a few people and find out if this means that there could be something as far as that goes. We said last week on our podcast that MotoAmerica is not going to sit still. There's going to be something that they're going to do. They're going to do something,
Yeah, but I didn't realize they're going to change something for the British Superbike Series in Donington so early, so that's going to be really good to find out. All right, so BSB's this weekend. We'll talk more about that next week's podcast. If you are in and around Tucson, Arizona, AMA Supermoto is going to be there. AMA National Enduro is in Matthews, Indiana. East Hare Scrambles in Millville, New Jersey. And if you're around Poland, which I'm not really sure.
I'm on my way. Where's it? What do we got? I'm on my way.
World Speedway. World Speedway's happening. If you're going to Poland this weekend, perfect. Jason, please be careful walking down the steps off the airplane. I worry about you, brother.
Oh, my God. That's not very nice, G-Dub. I mean, last thing I need is more people railing on me for my... You know what sucks is it's literally just been a little bit of bad work. I promise everybody I'm not clumsy. I'm really not. The hardest part about this whole wrist injury thing for me, going full circle now from the beginning of our podcast, is just how it happened. It just bums me out so much that I've missed, going on 8-9 weeks now by falling over and something. Cause I'm not like a clumsy guy. And it just just a
Well,
drag.
the thing that people need to understand too is, and I'm sure that most people have this for themselves, as much as archery is my getaway, golf is your getaway. You know, that you have, we're so immersed in the motorcycle world that the times that I get to spend with archery help to balance, you know, and, and golf for you is your balance, and you haven't even been able to golf and really get that outlet. So, dude, I totally understand your frustrations. You know, at this point, if I had something like a shoulder injury or something that prevented me from shooting, I know I would miss it and be a little bit more grumpier on the daily. I would be, because I'm just a grumpy old man. I'll
tell you how bored I've been. I've been so bored that I've been watching baseball. That's how bad it is. All right, that's how bad it is. I know all the teams that are going playoffs. The last half of the season I followed baseball, and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm sitting in front of TV watching baseball. It's because I was hurting too much to do anything else.
Well, now football season's here, and you can bellyache about your garbage Eagles. Anything else you'd like to say on the way out of here, buddy?
Fair play. I bet against them last week again in Green Bay. I thought there's no way they're going to win, and they did. But no, nothing else. Let's talk next week, and have a great weekend, G-Dub.
See you, buddy. Later, everybody.